It's Short here, and today you join me on a brand new World of Warcraft Legion video. Today's video is going to be a Havoc kind of talk about sort of guide video for talents and all talents in PvP this season and in 7.2, and some of the changes from last season. Also, if you are just getting into Havoc and this is the first video you're coming across, then I'll also go over the reasoning for both. So the main damage build right now is going to kind of relate around the first two talent builds. Now, the first two that I would say is best to actually do or go with right now is Fellblade and Demon's Blades. Because the main reason because of this, originally Fellblade only reset when you use Demon's Bite. But as they've changed it so it now will reset on your auto attacks, it makes it a lot more powerful. You're not really running this for the mobility. You're mainly running it for the mobility is a bonus, but you're mainly running it for just the damage in general, which is pretty awesome. Also, it gives you, as I said before, that little bit more ability. They did nerf Demon Blades, but unfortunately for PvP, it's still the best, because it just allows you to generate that passive fury gain whilst you're basically using all the rest of your globals on either Chaos Strikes or Fell Blades, or obviously if you're bursting with meta and etc. I'll go over some of the burst rotation as well in a separate video for you guys, but then we're going to be moving on to level 102 talents now. For PvP, I mainly like to run with Bloodlet because in most cases you're not going to be able to get them stacked up enough for First Blood to actually really take into account and the extra damage to actually help. But what it is good for is if you don't want to do necessarily so much rot pressure, but you more want to do some more kind of bill one shot. It gives a lot more burst potential to you. So if you're looking for a little bit more burst from your spec, but I don't really think that's a problem right now, because if you really want burst, then you just go with the spec I'm currently running. But I'll also talk to you about a little bit more consistent damage build as well. But Bloodlet is still really powerful, and when combined with Master of the Glaive, it just helps you be able to keep the snares up, and having 2 charges of a glaive throw is really helpful as well, because you can double stack your Bloodlet. Now, interesting, moving on to level 104, there's been some changes. Now, everything on this row, I would say, is pretty decent. Personally, I'm moving away from actually liking Soul Rending. I haven't really been using it this patch or last patch either. My personal favorite is Nether Warp, because it gives you the increased speed. You can also immune mechanics in PvE, and also it's just an immune on a button, so it's basically a pseudo ice block, which is really cool. But the 50% blur and blur automatically applying, it's not necessarily bad, but I think this is only going to be decent when I only really use it if I'm FCing for RBGs, for example, because you can't actually Nether Warp with the flag at the moment because it will make you immune. Therefore, you'd be kind of OP, like Paladins can't bubble with it, or etc. like that. You can't do the same with orbs as well. So that's the only reason why you would want to go with that. I'm not really I would personally, in nearly every comp base, always want to take Nether Walk. Against a dot combo, I want to take it because you can remove the dots. We'll go over the reason why we're running Pacific against specific dot combos and such like that as well. But yeah, we're going to move on to the level 106. I don't really see any reason to run momentum, but I mean, it can work. Personally, my playstyle, I prefer to have Nemesis, because I prefer to have that extra damage component. Now, I think if you can keep momentum up and you are running an extremely consistent build, and you are running more of a kind of, if you're running Destro Warlock Havoc, for example, or even Affliction Warlock Havoc, I think it can work decently. But I think, to be honest, because Nemesis has got a 5% buff, and even though it lasts that little bit less time in PvP now because of the Hotfix change, I still think it's going to be personally one of the better, the best talent for me, and also I think going to be, it gives you a lot more burst potential, and also you can kind of get cooldowns by using Chaos Blade and Nemesis on its own, and then followed it by meta. But I think it's one of those playstyle things. I think if you can play really well with momentum, then you can get better use out of it than necessarily Nemesis, but also it will depend on comp. So if you're playing a more bursty comp, say Arms Warrior, Frost DK, and Holy DK, Rep, Pally, Havoc, anything along those lines, any double melee kind of comp, you're going to want to run Nemesis over momentum. But if you're running, say, a consistent damage comp where you're literally just trying to play as a dampling, such as Shadow Priest, such as Affliction Warlock, Destro Warlock. I mean, even with Destro Warlock, I would probably say that Nemesis is better because you want to go with the kind of burst setup anyway, and it gives you a lot more burst pressure, and you already have quite a bit of consistent damage with Bloodlet and Master of the Glaive, which leads us on quite nicely to what I would say we don't really have a choice on the level 108 row as of right now. I mean, you can run the reduced cooldown on stun, but in most cases, where a lot of stuns in the game, you're going to be running this on DR, and having the 50% snare, 1, and 2, having the double Bloodlet charge on one target when you open is just personally just too powerful. And then if this, like, an interesting thing I would like to see is a spec where you could run Demon Reborn and Dynamic, and I'll go on to like when you should be running Dynamic and when you should be running Feral Barrage and so on in a minute, in my opinion. And just before we go on in the video, I forgot to say at the start, but everything I'm going to be talking about in this opinion is through my experience and also my opinion, so feel free to criticize me in the comment section down below if you want to talk about some talent changes and such like that for Havoc in this patch. But this is what I found works best right now, so if you want to run with it, feel free. But if you have any suggestions on what I should be running otherwise, then I'm all ears. But I would be interested to see a spec where you can basically proc your Chaos Nova and Blur cooldowns by basically using I-Beam. Now, that would be kind of OP because of how, like, you would basically reset I-Beam as well. In some ways, I would like to see them remove the concept of removing the cooldown from I-Beam by invoking Metamorphosis, and just keeping it with Chaos Nova and Blur, and maybe something else like Venture Retreat or something. Something small. It doesn't have to be that big. I mean, if this was something really big like Nether Walk, it's hard to do it in a talent, but if it was, it'd be really broken. But it also doesn't trigger on the Metamorphosis that you get from I-Beam when you're running Dynamic, which is kind of sad. I think this would make this talent row a lot harder to choose. But even then, I would miss the slows a lot from my glaive, and also the double Bloodlet damage is just insane. So yeah, moving on to level 110 right now. This is actually interesting because I've been testing all of them. Now at the moment I'm running Chaos Blades, but all of them are actually viable during some scenarios. So it really depends on what you are looking for. If you're looking for overall consistent damage, you would go Bloodlet and you would go Feral Barrage, right? Now, if you're going to be rooted a lot or you're going to be kited a lot, then also Feral Barrage is better as well. If you're looking for a really, really strong one-shot, you're obviously going to go with Chaos Blades with your Nemesis and then with your Metamorphosis as well. That's going to be pretty cool. But something which you can be doing, something I was trying out a little bit in RBGs, if you want some more consistent damage and some more consistent theoretically, you could actually get a lot more consistent healing from this as well if you actually went soul rending. Then you would be able to basically play Dynamic. Now, I think because they buffed Dynamic to 8 seconds, and the fact that we got some artifact, in our artifact traits in our new weapon on the little 4 that we got here, you can see here it reduces the cost of I-Beam by basically 20 Fury. So that's pretty good. And basically it means that we now have a 30 or so cost. I believe it was like 50 before, and there's a turkey jumping in front of me. Okay then. But yeah, so that's going to because you can get it off a lot more regularly, and I kind of want to see if we could, like, if Blizzard could make it so there is like an I-Beam build, but I feel like that's a really ish thing to do, because if they do, they would arguably have to make I-Beam not kickable, and then I think it would be too overpowered, especially if you could go, say, Dynamic, Demon Reborn, and actually reset your Curse Nova and your Blur, and then also Blind Fury. as well. I think that'd be really, really powerful. But in most cases with burst, this is going to be the setup. Or if you really want to commit to burst, this will be the setup. But if you want a kind of hybrid, I would say go with something like this. This is something that I'm trying in PvE right now. But in most cases, I prefer Chaos Blade for PvE. But I won't really be talking about PvE that much because I'm really just a Mythic Plus, and I kind of speed my way through it as quickly as I can. But in regards to just complete one shot, I really, really enjoy playing with Chaos Blades. But it really depends on your comp and whether you're going to be chasing the targets a lot and whether you just want to have really, really consistent pressure and you want to go into deep dampening. And personally, I would even prefer running Nemesis over Momentum, but that's purely because I also don't like the way you're using your Fell Rushes to gain the Momentum stacks. Would basically mean you then don't have them for defensive or offensive pushes. So it would be basically kind of making you have to use your Fell Rushes and your Vengefuls to keep your damage high. When with this build you can basically pop Nemesis and can keep doing a lot of consistent damage. So yeah, so that's going to wrap up the normal talents for you guys. I hope you guys did enjoy that, and that helps you. But we're going to be now jumping into the honor talents and my opinion of them, and arguably what I would say is the best build right now. Personally, the first row, of course, we've talked about before. I think the main argument points are between Relentless and also Medallion 2-minute Trinket. I've been playing a lot of Relentless. It's a lot of fun. It's weird because you kind of take for granted the fact you have a trinket, but when you don't have one and you get used to playing without one, it's just like it feels like a no-brainer. I'm personally preferring Relentless a lot of the time on everything, maybe bar healers, I think, pretty much in most cases. So but yeah, I mean, against some comps you can also run adaptation. I don't particularly like this because I feel like if you're fighting good players, they'll just proc it on something like a sap or something which is not really that impactful, and then you'll have to set a full Hammer of Justice. Now we'll come on to Hammer of Justice in a little bit as well, because I want to talk to something that's pretty cool that I saw from the Cup this weekend, and also I was testing out a little bit last night, so that was pretty cool and pretty fun. But we're going to be running on to the second row. Now I don't think hardiness is ever going to be good, because in most cases as a Havoc you're not really, like, if you're going to be melee, right? So somebody's going to be able to hit you, therefore there's the likelihood you're going to be above 80% health is not going to be very high. So not brilliant. Personally, I just prefer the extra health unless I know I'm going to be the kill target, and then even then it's a bit of a yeah and no, because it really depends on what kind of healer you are, like you have as well. If you have something like a druid that can thorns you, and you know can really, or a holy pally that can really deal with physical damage, like with bops and such, then I would say reinforced armor's better. If not, then I would say like sharpen. Sparring can be good. Personally, I dislike it though. That's just because I don't think it's consistent enough to actually warrant to take it. But that's it. Like that's just in my experience. I haven't really been seeing it being consistent enough. So moving on to the next row, we have Solitude, Glimmer, and Cover of Darkness. So personally, at the moment, I've been running a lot of Cover of Darkness because it basically makes your darkness not a whiffed defensive. This is a very serious defensive. Now, because I'm not in PvP combat, it still will show me 20%, but this basically goes up to 70% when I'm in PvP combat, which is really, really good. And I mean, I like Glimmer, the fact that you can apply blow whenever you're vengeful, but in most cases I'm using Pharos to run away, not necessarily the Vengeful. I mean, I should be probably using Vengeful more, and I do use it, but I'm mainly using it for the running away from melees that are chasing me to slow them and then Fell Rush away around a pillar. And to be honest, in most cases I'm not going to be the kill target. In most, like in my opinion, when I've mostly seen, unless you're fighting specific comps like a mirror, for example, when you're fighting a Destro Warlock and a Havoc mirror, they will go Havoc. Sometimes with DKs will switch you, and also sometimes Arms Warriors will switch you with Sharpen late in the game. But if you're going to be basically stacking around, or if you're playing with either another caster, or if you're playing Destro, Warlock, Havoc, then I would definitely say Cover of Darkness is better, because it basically allows you to have 2 main AoE defensives, bar your healers ones. So you have your Foul Lord, the Call of the Foul Lord from the Destro lock, and then you have your Darkness. Now, Darkness is ridiculously powerful when you run cover, because it basically gives a 70% just a void of damage from attacks, which is ridiculous. The only time where I would actually run Solitude is basically when I'm playing 2s and I'm going to be basically soloing the healer, and my either healer or my DPS partner is range. But personally, on this role, I've just been running Cover of Darkness, because even in 2s, you Darkness, and it's really, really good. Okay, moving on to the next row. Now, this is an interesting discussion, because for a long time we were running I. Now, the problem is with I, it does decent damage still, and you can still run it. But if you can play well with reverse magic, it's really powerful. So basically, let me explain the situation. Your healer's getting attacked by a Ret Paladin. Okay, now the Ret Paladin is opened on your healer with a Hodge. Now, Hammer adjusters, those who don't know. You're going to just walk past with Reflective Magic, and then you're going to use Reflective Magic next to a healer, cleansing off the bop, and also then reflecting it onto the Ret. So you basically turned their powerful setup stun into a stun which then goes against them. Also against any form of like Polymorph, Hex, etc. can be broken by Reflective Magic. You can also get Warlock dots reflected, things like that. So you can also just stop your healer from those situations where you have unstable stacking and your healer's like, I want to stop taking this dot damage, but I don't want to dispel because it would really hurt me because of the damage, and also the silence will kill me. So you can come in, reverse magic, you get extra damage because you're reflecting the dots back onto the Warlock. It's a 1 minute cooldown, so you can do it whenever it basically has burst up. And also, you're also helping out your healer, because then they don't need to use their dispel on something like that. They can use it on a Polymorph on you, a Root on you, whatever it is. So basically, this opens up a new realm of arguable, I would say, like I want to say skill, but arguably I just really like the talent personally. I think it adds a new dynamic to Demon Hunter, which hasn't really been seen in the same way. Now I'm unsure, since we've got this honor talent since the start of the game, whether we've actually been able to do reflective with Hodge and stuff. I feel like that's new. I don't know though, but it's I want to say it did, but then again I want to say it didn't. So, but right now it's really, really good, and I know it does that. So we're going to move on to the next row now. Thank you, phone, for going off. That's lovely, isn't it? But yeah, so I would say on this row you can take Mana Rift. It's not bad, but most good healers are going to be able to play around it, because it does take those 2 seconds to erupt. If you just put it on the healer and then it erupted that second, it would be pretty, I think it would be like really, really good, because you could just a healer by basically setting the healer on focus and spamming this off cooldown. But especially as it has a 20-yard range. But I think the only way it's counterable is after 2 seconds it erupts, because I think if it didn't do that, then it would actually just be broken. Now, I don't feel like you should be running Mana Break, and that was the main combination here. So you would Mana Rift into Mana Break and do 25% damage. But the problem is, healers now know that Mana Rift, and players understand what Mana Rift does, and they just move out of it. Like, they just stop casting, press D or press A, and just strafe out of it. So it's not really worth it. Now, Awakened Demon Within, I think is still decent. If you're running Leech, maybe. It can also give you random setup pressure, just random pressure throughout the game, which is not bad. But to be honest, Dynamic Origins is the best talent by far. Two reasons. One, if you're running your burst build, it basically sets it up so you have meta for every single Chaos Blade and every single Nemesis at the same time. And also, second, you just output 10% more damage when you're running the talent, just passively. So 10% is huge when it comes to PvP anyway. So Dynamic Origins, I would pretty much say, is one of the best talents on this row. Moving on to the final Honor Talents row. I know I've been going on a little bit, guys, but I hope you guys do enjoy this little format, kind of more raw, kind of a little talk about the Honor Talents. But we're going to finish off before we end off this video. So I would say there's two talents really I mainly run. In most cases I run Unbreakable Prism. This is mainly because of two reasons. It acts like a clone. One, so say for example you don't have a kick for be able to stop the next heal that will top the warrior that you're killing. You can cage the warrior, and then by the time the warrior is out of the cage, he will then you will then have kickoff cooldown. You will then be able to kick the healer and kill the warrior. Now, just so you know, other people who are playing Havoc, if you do this to a warrior and you're not running the talent, they can Berserker Rage out of your, because it counts as a sap. Therefore, they were able to Berserker Rage it in the same way they would do with a rogue. Now, the only time where I would say this is necessarily going to be better for you to run, I mean, and this is again a playstyle thing, and it's also down to how much trust in your healer you have, and also the comp you're fighting, and how likely you are going to be of the target, is going to be Rain from Above. Now, you can run Rain from Above when you're fighting Double Caster. It's a lot weaker against Double Caster, obviously, because you only have the very, very, very top of the Rain from Above is when you're out of range of most classes. You're not out of range of Babumi still, because he has the extra 5-yard range, but when you're at the very top, you are out of range to nearly every caster in the game. But as you slowly fall, you come back in range, and yeah. But if it's going to double million, you think you're going to get, I mean, you should never really be caught as a Havoc. You have double Fell Rush, so you should be saving those defensively to just peace out. You have double jump. You can outrun nearly pretty much anything in the game, bar maybe a monk, and even then you probably should be running away from him. And if you're running Unbreakable Cage, you can do stuff like caging the thing that's on you, run away. As it chases you, you will then have stun, and you'll have ways to deal with it. You can, it's just nicer to have that CC. But there is specific cases where you would want to run Rain. Personally, I like to run it against Arms Warrior Frosty K. Sometimes it's a bit because if you don't get the grip before he rains, he can just grip you out the sky. The same with Ursul's. Like, the reason why I'm a bit if and but about Rain is because it's very counterable. There's a lot of stuff that can, if you do it wrong, you can get countered by. Ursul's counters you, grip counters you, charge counters you, root can counter you if it's a bad time. And I think that you're immune to stun because you're in the sky, but that's about it. So I'm not really going to go over Mana Break because I don't think Mana Break is very powerful right now. I think it had its highlight in 7.1 when we were hitting for arguably a million with it every time when a healer got but that's basically going to wrap up the Havoc talents. I did this one a bit more raw. Sometimes I actually script these videos to give my opinion on them a little bit, and I want to share my opinion with you guys. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to hit it with a like. If you want to see more videos like this one, because I do try and upload on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. We're going to be trying out the new Brawl tomorrow, and also I'm going to be trying to throw on some RBG footage hopefully this week as well. I'm going to be talking a little bit more, and also I'd like to hear you guys, would you like to see some more, well, some Havoc 3v3 that I've been playing. I've been playing quite a bit on my Havoc lately in 3v3, so I could get some of those games recorded and uploaded for you guys. But let me know in the comment section down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure to be subscribed and feel free to turn notifications on so you don't miss any of my videos. And as I said before, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave it with a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Farewell.